One day away from the NBA season kicking off in preseason, a couple of days away from the WNBA finals kicking off, and the talk of the entire basketball world is what Napheesa Collier just did in her wrap up interview, her exit interview for the Minnesota Lynx, who were bounced by the Phoenix Mercury, and what she did in calling out Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA, is perhaps one of the greatest acts of rebellion and one of the most revolutionary, one of the most courageous acts. I'm struggling for words here. It's something that we talked about on Player's Choice today. To those of you who watch us on Player's Choice, I will certainly dig through those clips and, share a little bit about what was said and why I so strongly support what Napheesa did. And, with great power comes great responsibility. Spider-Man taught us that. So I devote the next few minutes to Napheesa Collier, letting you know what she thinks about the leadership at the WNBA level. And then I'll give you my thoughts on it in a hopefully succinct, non-emotional way, and why it matters that athletes and people in general, when they rise to positions of power, are agents for change and are able to change things for the next generation. So let's listen to what Napheesa had to say.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Mercury for advancing to the finals. And I want to be clear, this conversation is not about winning or losing. It's about something much bigger. The real threat to our league isn't money, it isn't ratings, or even missed calls, or even physical play. It's the lack of accountability from the league office. Since I've been in the league, you've heard the constant concerns about officiating, and it has now reached levels of inconsistency that plague our sport and undermine the integrity in which it operates. Whether the league cares about the health of the players is one thing, but to also not care about the product we put on the floor is truly self-sabotage. Year after year, the only thing that remains consistent is the lack of accountability from our leaders. The league has a buzzword that they've rolled out as talking points for the CBA as to why they can't pay the players what we're worth. That word is sustainability. But what's truly unsustainable is keeping a good product on the floor while allowing officials to lose control of games. Fans see it every night. Coaches, both winning and losing, point it out every night in pregame and postgame media. Yet leadership just issues fines and looks the other way. They ignore the issues that everyone inside the game is begging to be fixed. That is negligence. At Unrivaled this past February, I sat across from Kathy and asked how she planned to address the officiating issues in our league. Her response was, well, only the losers complain about the refs. I also asked how she planned to fix the fact that players like Caitlin, Angel, and Paige, who are clearly driving massive revenue for the league, are making so little for their first 4 years. Her response was, Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything. And in that same conversation, she told me players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal that I got them. That's a mentality driving our league from the top. We go to battle every day to protect a shield that doesn't value us. The league believes it succeeds despite its players, not because of them. I have the privilege of watching my husband run a league where he has to balance 100 different things at once. I won't pretend the job is easy, but even with all of that on his plate, he always takes the time to reach out to players when he sees an injury, whether it's Unrivaled or even during the WNBA season. That is what leadership looks like. It's the human element. It's basic integrity, and it's the bare minimum any leader should embody. This year alone, I've gotten calls, texts, and well wishes from so many players across the league. Those moments remind me that sometimes there are things bigger than the results than this game we play. But do you know who I haven't heard from? Kathy. Not one call, not one text. Instead, the only outreach has come from her number 2 telling my agent that she doesn't believe physical play is contributing to injuries. That is infuriating. And it's the perfect example of the tone-deaf, dismissive approach that our leaders always seem to take. I've finally grown tired. For too long, I have tried to have these conversations in private, but it's clear there is no intention of accepting there's a problem. The league has made it clear it isn't about innovation, it isn't about collaboration, it's about control and power. I've earned this platform and I've paid the price to get here, and now I have a responsibility to speak on behalf of the fans and everyone in this league that deserves better. Our leadership's answer to being held accountable is to suppress everyone's voices by handing out fines. I'm not concerned about a fine. I'm concerned about the future of our sport. At some point, everyone deserves to hear the truth. from someone who I hope has earned the benefit of the doubt to fight for what is right and fair for our athletes and our fans. We have the best players in the world. We have the best fans in the world. But right now, we have the worst leadership in the world. If I didn't know exactly what the job entailed, maybe I wouldn't feel this way. But unfortunately for them, I do. We serve a league that has shown they think championship coaches and Hall of Fame players are dispensable, and that's fine. It's professional sports. But I will not stand quietly by and allow different standards to be applied at the league level. Thank you. Yes. Again, I want to be clear. This is not about winning and losing. People, coaches, players, winning and losing are complaining about these same things. And again, the league talks about sustainability. This is about sustainability. How are you going to protect your players? How are you going to make sure that we have the best product on the floor night after night when it's so inconsistent and people are getting hurt left and right? I'm sure that they will find me. I mean, seems like anything with free speech is fine now, so.
5 minutes before you walked in here, the WNBA sent another press release announcing more money, more TV rights deals that they just secured. Do you think it's a little premature to announce all the money they're making when they haven't come to a deal with the people that play the game on the floor on their behalf?
I mean, it's something that they continue to do. And, but in the same breath, they cry that they don't have enough money to pay the players, that they don't have the sustainability to pay the players when they're selling teams for $300 million, when valuations are going up to almost $500 million. Like, it doesn't make sense to us. It's why we're fighting so hard in our CBA and what we're going to continue to fight for.
At what point between, the end of the season and today did you decide that, that was how you wanted to open this and, you wanted to prepare something like that?
I think, obviously, this is something that we've been talking about for a really long time. But I think just seeing, the response as well, just hearing over and over and over again, we have the best refs in the world, we don't have a problem, none of the injuries are due to physicality in the way that we're reffing. It's an insult to my intelligence, honestly. I've played this game for my entire life, and you think that I don't know what it looks like, when it's played the way it's supposed to be played. And whether the league believes it has a problem or not, just even acknowledging it to the players would be a step in the right direction. There is clearly a problem. People across the board, coaches, players, winning, losing, fans, everyone can see that there's a problem. Accepting that is the first stage. In any support group you go to, acceptance is the first stage. If they could just accept that and say it to us and then put a plan in place to make changes, that would go a long way, just even in the perception of how this is being handled.
I want to say that in my lifetime, I've come to admire a lot of athletes because some athletes do use their position, their platform to protest social issues. And I know a lot of people just say shut up and dribble, but very many times these athletes can become very large megaphones for something that is very important and something that does need to be said. And in this case, something did need to be said about women's sports. And I think that a similar thing has to happen in men's sports. The question is, who is the man strong enough? Who is the man courageous enough? Who is the man brave enough, bold enough, and has the kind of integrity to do what Napheesa Collier just did? And the answer is, I don't know yet. I got to tell you, I promise this is going to tie basketball together. This is not just going to be a 2-hour or 1-hour rant on basketball. But the truth is, what happened with Fee has been gnawing at me for a couple of days now. I've been a little bit short with people because this is legitimately one of my favorite basketball players in the world. No pandering, not pandering to women's sports. If you watch this woman hoop the entire season as I have, I think you will find it very, very difficult to not get emotionally invested in what she's doing for this game. And some of your favorite athletes are very big advocates for women's basketball. Kobe Bryant was a really huge advocate for women's basketball, not only because his daughter, was going to grow up to be a great female hooper, and he wanted to create a clearer path for her to go forward and maybe dominate a game and have a lot of people. The truth is, there have been a lot of forces that have held women's basketball back. And no, don't believe the hype. It's not just, it's boring. They need to lower the rims and all that stuff. People don't support it. It's a really big thing that's been going on for a long time. And the product deserves better. The players deserve better, and they have deserved more money for a very long time. I'm a person who has a CFA. I'm a person who has very deeply studied business, finance in general. I'm someone who's launched 5 businesses of my own. It's very clear to me that there's enough money to go around, and that certain players, especially the top players, do need to get paid a lot more money. And so the question then becomes, who's willing to sacrifice their paycheck? Who's willing to go out of their way to do what Fee just did? And what's important about what Fee just did was it deviates a little bit from what a lot of these, very agenda filled personal rants tend to do, which is they make them about themselves, right? I want to tread carefully trying to compare Napheesa Collier to people like Malcolm X, people like, Martin Luther King, people like Mahatma Gandhi, people like whoever you want to think about in terms of social advocacy, even someone like Greta Thunberg. I want to I want to steer clear of social advocacy versus pay us what you owe us type of advocacy, and just say that any person who stands for a large group, and I can say this from personal experience. I had a person in my life whose book is behind me. His name is Rob Stewart, and he is from here, Toronto. If you're joining us from Toronto, he is a Toronto guy. Was a Toronto guy, and his big advocacy in life was he wanted to save sharks because he didn't think that what people were doing to sharks was fair. And I saw him devote his life to it, lose his life for it. And it really set a tone for me in terms of, if you believe in something, you owe it to your next generation to make a difference for them. And so what Napheesa Collier has done for women's basketball is incredible. To those who don't know or aren't familiar with Napheesa, what she's done is not only is she a multi-time WNBA All-Star, multi-time All-NBA, she's a rookie. She's a former Rookie of the Year. She's one of the greatest players in the WNBA. She's a former, Yukon Husky. She comes from this great program. She has a husband. Together with her husband and Brianna Stewart, they founded a league that went completely bonkers last year called Unrivaled. They spent years developing this league. They found sponsorships for this deal and for this league. And the cool thing about this league is, because the WNBA season is so short, many WNBA players have to go overseas to play basketball, because what are you going to do with 8-9 months of your year other than play basketball? So a lot of women were forced to go to Italy, Spain, Russia, Turkey, etc. And Unrivaled offered an opportunity for women to stay in the WNBA. Now we're seeing the WNBA expand. This year we will expand to Toronto and then also Portland. Last year it was Golden State. So you're seeing more and more expansion, and you're going to continue to see more and more expansion as this game continues to grow. And one of the major reasons it's growing is, of course, Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers. These are huge names coming up in college basketball, and they garnered massive attention. And really, if you think about it, this is how the NBA started, right? I mean, there was huge collegiate programs. People loved Magic Johnson. People loved Larry Bird, and then they followed them to the Celtics and the Lakers. And it's interesting, the parallels between the 80s, 70s, WNBA today and the NBA back then, because it's very interesting. There's a lot of physicality. There's a lot of racism. There's a tremendous amount of, polarity between fan bases that are divided on racial lines. Caitlin Clark fans versus Angel Reese fans. A lot of that stuff ends up being pretty race related. And so I think that it's very interesting that you have a person here in Napheesa Collier who is speaking for everybody. She's not speaking on one side or another side. She's not necessarily anti-owner. She's not necessarily pro-star player. She's not, she's fighting for the contracts of rookies coming up 5 years from now. If you're somebody who has a small, child, a daughter right now who's playing basketball, and you're hoping that she's going to go to the WNBA someday, she's fighting for her paycheck, right? Because the true mark of legacy, the true mark of impact, in my opinion, is that you leave a situation better than you found it. When I walked into covering the Toronto Raptors, and I'll just make this briefly about myself for a minute, and I want to express to you, maybe to those who don't know, how I approach things. When I walked into covering the Toronto Raptors, I had an idea that I didn't like what the team was doing. I didn't like how things were going. I didn't like how selfish it was. I had a lot of gripes with how the media treated the players and how they covered the players. I had an issue with some of the laziness of the media. How they were able to spread rumors without any verification, how they were able to sort of subtly character assassinate people with plausible deniability. And I called it out day after day as people called me crazy. And I did that precisely because I wanted every person who comes into Toronto to have a better experience of being a Raptor. My hope is that I made even a 1% dent into the experience that Jacoby Walter or Jamal Shed have with this team. It's not lost on me. The irony of it and the maybe coincidence of it is not lost on me that I rallied against this team being selfish for 2 straight years. I wrote post after post, made video after video, many of which garnered tens of thousands, if not millions of views. I joked at this team's propensity to implode with selfish basketball. And right now, I am witnessing myself, to my joy, to my heart's content. I am witnessing a team that is headed by a selfless human being, that is built around a selfless superstar. That is, the vibes are immaculate, aren't they? This team is the absolute antithesis of the team that I absolutely despised in 2021. And I don't know what portion of the fan base listened to me, what person maybe was influenced 1% by what I said about the team being selfish. But what I can tell you is this team went from possibly the most toxic locker room in 2021, 2022, 2022, 2023, those 2 years. It went from possibly one of the most toxic, most negative to possibly the most selfless and most effervescently positive team in the NBA. And I can't help but think if I had even 1% of a contribution to that, I am very pleased. Did the same thing with the film festival. Launched a film festival in 2017 because I didn't feel filmmakers were being treated fairly. And I wanted to create a film festival that was a young film festival that would treat people fairly. And so we lost a lot of money. We left a lot of money on the table. We spared no expense. We treated people better than people treated us. And I think it is that spirit of service that ties all of the great impact people in human history together, because there's this idea of, well, if life doesn't exist after me, then why should I care? Why should I care about the environment? Why should I care about political rights? Why should I, you know, care about anything, beyond myself, my family, my children? And I think the reason that you should care is because it's human to care. It's human to want things to be better, right? What Napheesa Collier is asking for here is generally a change that's barely going to impact her career at all. She is one of the higher paid players in WNBA. She is an all NBA player. She is, presumably going to win an MVP at some point over the next couple of years. She's in her prime and she's probably going to be out of the WNBA in 4 or 5 years. What was great to see was one important thing, which was the unifying, rallying support from all the other players, from Asia Wilson to the league MVP right now, to former players like Elena Deladon, to also, legends of the game like Sue Bird. I'm curious to see if Diana Taurasi, Candace Parker, people like that are going to chime in. But you can check social media. If you follow us on social media, I've been posting about this shit all day. And it's important to me. It's important to me to have this conversation. I hope it's important for someone. I know it's not going to be a popular video. I can see it right now. We usually have 150, 250, 300 people in here. We got 30 people in here. I understand women's basketball is not cool for you, but the reality is this applies to more than women's basketball. This could be something that you could apply in your own life, because let's just be honest, we could all be better people. I could be a better person. You could be a better person. I mean, your kids can be better people. And Fee is setting a really important example, I think, for what advocacy looks like, what change can be, and what a selfless leader can be, frankly. And, what she did with Unrivaled. So, to explain the Unrivaled situation, they created a league, which is a 3-on-3 league, Unrivaled, which operates, during the winter months. And that 3-on-3 league pays more. It pays its players more than the WNBA, which has been around for 30 plus years. So when Fee says, I've done it, like, I know, like, they don't think we know, but I know, like, what this is supposed to be. Obviously, you got to look at this from the perspective of, uh, she's obviously done that so that the players have a negotiating tool, because for too long, when they would go to the collective bargaining agreement, the league would just be like, you settle for whatever, because if we don't do this for you, there's no other place for you to go. You want to go to Turkey, you want to go to Italy, whatever. And I think that it's very, very important that Fee and Stewie and her husband have created this Unrivaled league, because the big selling point of Unrivaled is you get paid more money, you get equity, you get the best trainers, and you get treated well. This woman, Kathy Engelbert, who, is the commissioner of WNBA, I was looking into her a little bit, and she strikes me as a real slave owner mentality person, man. I'm gonna tell you, I've never met the woman, but I've read some of her quotes. And if what Fee has said is to be taken at face value, it is quite insane that this woman is in charge of managing the future earnings and the future growth of women's basketball. Is truly nuts. And, there's a lot of people that are divided on this sort of racial line of sex, line of gender line of like, well, women got to support women and men got to support men. Well, I reject that. I reject that completely. Many of the people in my life that have been the most regressive towards women are other women. Many of the people that I think are the most regressive to the progress of men are actually men. So the truth is, it doesn't really come down to gender lines. Fee happens to be a great advocate for women's basketball, not because she's a woman, because she's a very, very caring and very intelligent person. Kathy Engelbert is an absolute disaster for women's basketball, not because she is a woman, but in spite of the fact that she's a woman. So I want to take you to the conversation we had on Player's Choice today. For those of you who missed it, and hopefully I'll add a little bit of commentary to what happened on PC.
In the NBA, whether it's in any sort of business, leadership comes from the top. And when leadership is bad, it just resonates throughout the whole crew. And I feel like with what Napheesa is talking about, she's talking about this commissioner doesn't really care about what we got going on. It's almost like we are irrelevant to her. Because remember who commissioners work for. Like Roger Goodell works for all 30 owners in the NFL. He does not work for the players. This commissioner works for the owners in the WNBA. So you guys are second. Whatever the owners want, that's what's important to me, not what you guys have going on. And Fee has a valid claim in what she's saying, because I vividly remember hearing David Stern say, quote, if I had to do it over again, we would be more diligent at regulating that sort of play. He was talking about the bad boy Pistons, which means that the league decides how games get called. Like in terms of the physicality, we decide how things are seen. And it looks to me like, in terms of what Fee was talking about, you guys are allowing this stuff and you guys aren't doing anything about it. So you don't really care about our well-being. On top of that, you're essentially telling us you should be lucky that you're here to be playing. Okay, that's valid, Mars. I think, to be honest with you, I am lucky to have a job. But you know what? You're lucky to have me too. Because without me, there is no league, which means you don't have a job neither. So I think that there's a respect factor that's not there. And because of that, I think we're in a space now where this commissioner may have to go. I do. I think we're in a space where this commissioner has to go, because I think that the players, I don't think they have any respect for him whatsoever. David Stern, there was a level of respect, even though the players didn't like him, there was a level of respect that the players had for David Stern. I don't think they have any respect for I think Engelbert is her name, Kathy Engelbert. I don't think they have any respect for her whatsoever.
Sure, you can't do both. Right. You can't be disrespectful to players, not be in their favor, and also be the reason they're not getting paid. No, or at least part of the reason they're not getting paid. Now, I think when people don't like you, it's a little bit easier to start looking at what you're actually doing for me. You know what I mean? If I already don't like you, that quote, if Fee is correct, and that quote about Caitlin Clark should be on her hands and knees, that is some real problematic mentality. That is some serious slave owner mentality that she got.
I didn't want to say that, but that's really how I felt, to be honest with you. That's what
me,
it sounds
me
like.
too.
Shut up and be happy that you got a job. Shut up.
Yeah. And to be honest, like, there's a lot of people in the world that have this type of mentality. Let's just be real about it. They do end up in positions of power. I've always believed that people like Napheesa Collier are so important because she has this like very generous spirit about her. She, her and Stewie, they founded Unrivaled. What was the selling point of Unrivaled? Equity for players. You're going to be paid more than you've ever been paid before. You get to stay in the United States during the off season because you don't want to go to Russia. You don't want to go to Turkey. You don't want to go through, customs in Russia and shit and go through what Brittany Griner went through, right?
We just don't bring drugs to the country though. Don't do that.
Okay,
don't
sure,
do that.
sure, absolutely. But also getting jailed for having a little bit of weed is kind of crazy, right? Wouldn't you agree with that?
America, man. Laws is laws in different countries. I can't say if I know the law, I can't say, oh, well, that shouldn't be the law. That's
Okay,
the law.
cool.
Don't go to that country if you don't want to follow that law.
I think Russia has its own problems in terms of corruption and shit, but nevertheless, let's move on.
Definitely do.
I think Fee has always shown me this spirit of paying it forward, service. She is a person who has always been of service to her teammates, to her family, and to her community. And everyone in Minnesota would tell you that she's so generous with her time with the media and stuff. She's a media darling for a reason. People love her for a reason. And what she's doing with Unrivaled, players love her. And she has become this voice for the players right now. And she is assuming a place that is able to make some change. As one of the best players in the WNBA or the NBA, you have a disproportionate amount of impact, money, but also responsibility to your co-players.
Well, Penn, it's not so much that she's just a great basketball player. It's the fact that she is the vice president of the WNBA Players Association.
For a reason.
So she, because she is this type of person. She is the type of person to stand up. She is the person to defend others.
I want to clarify that I had a lot of difficulty with today's episode. I'm hoping to watch it with you guys so that I can understand why I had so much difficulty with today's episode. You're going to see my reaction. It's not going to be pretty because some things are going to be said and I'm not going to deal well with them. But I think a lot of it has to do with how passionately I believe in this, but also probably my own emotional management, just not being able to control my frustration with some of the things that were being said.
She is that person. I'm happy that Fee did this. So yesterday I talked about it at first and I was like, I'm happy, but then I did this.
I want to just say, when people say but, pay attention. And you can see my face. I'm very, very much paying attention because when it's stuff like this, I think solidarity is important. I also think it's pretty important to crush dissent. Any person who wants to come at this and try to poke holes and, Fee and, say like she's doing it for this reason or that reason, or she has some ulterior motive or stuff. I want to squash that really quick. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe I should be more of a proponent for free speech in this situation. But I think, when it comes to the Kawhi Leonard situation, gambling, sports gambling, I have very, very hard lines that I draw when it comes to stuff like this. I don't mess around with gray areas when it comes to like serious shit like this. Women getting paid for basketball revenue or BRI, the split, Kathy Engelbert, Napheesa Collier, these are things I don't play with. So I want to just, hone in on the but. So this is the but.
Second analysis of it as well. And I mean, it's a lot to it as far as I'm not going to go ahead and just demonize Kathy based off of one.
You can see my face here. I've basically just given up. I'm just like, what the hell? Because I don't believe that Kathy Engelbert deserves this type of benefit of doubt.
One statement that Fee made in an alleged conversation, because I didn't hear Kathy say.
Alleged, right? So once again, I understand legalese, okay? I understand that this is America or this is Canada. People are innocent until proven guilty. This is not guilt. This is not guilt. We are not, this is not a fine. This happens at the 1 hour and 10 minute mark. 1 hour and 10 minutes, Tariq. So my view on this is if you are going to try and call into doubt what Napheesa Collier said, then I need you to 100%. What I need you to do is I need you to read Kathy Engelbert's statement responding to Napheesa, in which she does not deny the statement. She does not say that was never said. So again, sometimes, you want to have an opinion, you want to have a strong opinion about something, you want to talk about Steve Ballmer and Kawhi Leonard, you want to, misinterpret those facts and have a lot of people running with it. Look, I take I take this platform, Pensare Basketball, and I take my position on PC very, very seriously. It is a complete privilege and a very, again, one that I barely feel like I deserve. But let's just be real. I talk to 60,000 to 70,000 people every single week. Okay. 3 episodes on the panel. The last month and a half, I think I've been doing 3 episodes a week. Okay. During the season, if I continue to do 3 a week, some of those episodes rack up 25, 35,000 views. It's very easy to assume that at least if we're talking distinct audience between X, Instagram, Pensare Basketball, Player's Choice, the words that I say will be heard by 50,000 to 100,000 people. I think that's insane. I think that's insane to have any ability to influence even 0.01% of 40 to 50,000 people's minds is an absolute privilege. It is not it is not something I take for granted. And so when I come up there, I want to be correct. I want to be researched. I want to be very accurate. I'll I'm trying to work on being less annoying. I'm trying to work on being a lot less, condescending and all that stuff. But the truth is, very often, the things that frustrate me the most are when someone is just not bothering to do the work, not bothering to research something. And in this case, I'm probably going to get very frustrated by this. And I can already see it on my face right now because I am ready to absolutely blow my top. Because again, when you say allegedly, you imply doubt. When you say but, you imply doubt. When you mention conflict of interest, you imply doubt. Doubt weakens resolve, doubt weakens movements. And so right now, not only his favorite player, but many of the women around the WNBA are rallying around Fee. And what it's doing is it's creating an opportunity for other people to speak more easily. When one person stands up, we've all seen it, like be that person is what I say. When you're on a train and someone is being berated in a racial rant and everyone starts looking down at their phone like, oh, I hope that person doesn't talk to me. Or if someone is starting, to beat their girlfriend, I would hope that everybody would get up and say no. But that's never happens. It never happens. I've seen it happen myself. I've been on a train where someone is saying something, about somebody and screaming racist comments towards somebody, and everyone's just looking down like, please God, don't look up at me. And it's just like, you got to do something. And then, after 3 seconds, I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll get up and do something. But then the minute I get up and do something, like 4 or 5 people get up and they're just like very emboldened. And that's just how human beings work. And so, it's very important that when I get up, someone not trip me. It's a courageous act to get up. So, yes,
these things. And I'm not calling Fee a liar. I'm just saying that I, want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt here.
But see, this is a big issue here because Fee has a direct quote implying that Kathy Engelbert said something, and you're saying, I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but you're not giving Fee the benefit of the doubt. If Engelbert came out and said, I categorically did not say this, and Fee is saying she said this, I could hear your point. But in this case, only one person is saying she said this, and the other person is saying, yeah, I said it, but you've kind of misinterpreted what I've said and the tone that I said it in or whatever. It's a very silly thing. And again, the context is missing here too, because you can very easily put together, right? Like shit. Like you can tell that, right?
And it's just one press conference in bad reffing. People get really upset when they see bad reffing and they look for somebody to blame. And I think there should be some.
Let me immediately cut this off. Very early into that presser, she made it known that it wasn't about wins or losses, that it wasn't about losing. It wasn't about the game. She congratulated the Mercury. And immediately bringing up this refereeing thing, it implicates or implies, very strongly implies, that this is a person who is losing. Now, do you remember in the beginning what Napheesa said that Kathy Engelbert said to her when she said, look at the refereeing? She said, only the losing teams complain. And what is Ox saying right now? It's basically saying she's complaining because she's losing, right? Like, again, sometimes people will see me get frustrated on the panel or even here because someone will say something that seems very innocuous, like, let's give people a benefit of the doubt. And I don't hear it that way. Like my head, I don't hear this as, somebody trying to give Kathy Engelbert a fair shot. No, what I'm hearing here, and again, I could be wrong, but what I'm hearing here is someone attempting to say shut up and dribble. What I'm hearing is somebody basically saying that you are salty you lost. Later on, he is going to imply that she has a conflict of interest because she is the vice president of the Players Association, but also has her own league. And that Kathy Engelbert, is innocent until proven guilty. This is America. That whole thing. And it's the same excuse that was used with Steve Ballmer. And I think that it is tough because as many issues as you may have or I may have with Pablo Torre and the notoriety and the way that he's gone about things, and maybe he's a little bit arrogant and a little bit cocky, but like who am I to say anything about that? He's done a lot of work, and dismissing all of it sight unseen without researching is crazy. Siding with Steve Ballmer and trying to imply that Steve Ballmer is a victim because Kawhi Leonard is one of your favorite players is also, in my humble opinion, a little bit crazy. And these things have like ideas can be viral, man. Ideas can be like contagious. There's an infection, you know what I mean? Like there's a reason why when there's that kid who starts like slightly drawing a shape that looks like that shape, everybody kind of shuns that kid in high school. And it's just like, that's the kid to watch out for. Please stop that kid, because these ideas can be dangerous and implying very strongly that Napheesa Collier has ulterior motives, conflict of interest, is just salty about losing. It undercuts a very courageous, very important message. And that's the bulk of what I'm trying to say here. And that's why I got so
something
frustrated.
done about the ref, and I don't think it's
Fee
reported it. While I know
why you just signed that new, it can't be so.
You was kicking it, and I tell you something about association. No,
Well, I also don't think it's a coincidence that we got a labor deal coming up too. Don't leave that part out. I mean,
Right.
I think that's very important to mention. But Ox, you're a very smart man. I've heard you talk more than once, more than twice. You're a very smart man. Ox, is it ridiculous for me to think that a commissioner is feeling herself and big timing the Players Association president? Is it
That's not
ridiculous
crazy
for me
at
to think that? I don't think that. I 100% think WNBA history official before the season starts. We come in as
I'm trying not to lose my mind. You can sort of see it on my face, like I'm about to explode, and I
a
am about to
group
explode.
of all the referees. We come in as paying attention to something. NBA championship. Is that just because they better? No, it's because they following the rules. It's because they're following the letter of the law, which
you're trying to weaponize that conversation. No matter what you're trying, and you should take advantage, or not even take advantage, but you should let people know what's happening. If she's saying these things behind closed door, 100% you should let that be known. But I know that Fee is playing chess right now.
But she absolutely should, because I think number one, because Chill brought up they're about to do another CBA, collective bargaining agreement. I'm pretty sure, right? And then to me, I think every WNBA player should be playing an unrivaled. I don't think there's another better like in that conversation.
The commissioner of Unrivaled is Mickey Lawler, and she was expanding in sports. You know what I'm saying? Getting players paid. I think that has a lot to do with how
be the founder of Burger King, but then be the president of the union for McDonald's.
On the plane, it's not like there's a lot of low level players. So I think
that's true.
I think the average salary is a little skewed based on that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, because it's less play.
Right.
Because there's less players. But Penn, to your point, I mean, because you seem a little agitated about the conflict of interest. Penn, you can't be the founder of Burger King, but then be the president of the union for McDonald's. That's not the way that works, brother. No.
Direct conflict of interest right there.
I think what Fee has done over the last 3 years for women's basketball in terms of opening avenues, not just for herself, not for her husband, they're doing it for everybody. What they are trying to do is create some fairness in this field. And the reason that they're doing this is because they're sick and tired of Kathy Engelbert, frankly, dropping the ball. Because there's an opportunity here, and it's really frustrating as an underling, which is to say as a player for the Minnesota Lynx, right? It's really frustrating to see an opportunity and to have a league office that believes you should settle for less. I hate to say it, but there's a lot of women that don't think a lot about women. They don't think a lot of women. Some of the most sexist people in the world are women. They think nothing of women. They think women deserve less. I have researched this for 15 years of my life, and you will be so surprised at how many cases of oppression it is women who are coming down on women and holding women down. Kathy Engelbert is an example of that type.
So
of
basically,
woman.
you're saying women are the problem.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. See, you should try to listen a little bit more. You know,
My bad.
What I'm trying to say here is you're the problem.
Why is that?
Because
Ox or Kathy?
No, Ox. Because in this episode, what you have done, no, not black men, Ox specifically. What you have
Why
done
is Ox the problem?
is you have raised doubt on Fee's motivation when you really haven't thought about Fee's motivation. You've raised doubts about her.
I haven't thought about it. That's the only reason I said that.
You said that.
I thought about it.
Okay, listen, because I paid a lot of attention to what you said over the last 20 minutes. Let me try to summarize some of the stuff that I think you said. And this is, again, me interpreting. You've called into question her motivation to do this after the season, implying, why didn't you do this before the season now that you're knocked out?
Yes,
so now a random
that,
person listening to this with no insight, maybe not even, gonna go and listen to what Fee said, not research the economics of the WNBA, what these players could be getting paid. What those people are going to think is, oh, she just mad.
I don't care what those people think, and you shouldn't care what those people think either. If you're not invested in this, like if you don't care about the WNBA, you're not going to listen to Fee's interview. Your opinion on what I think about it means absolutely shit to me.
This is beyond WNBA. Okay. This goes to women's sports.
I'm talking about the WNBA. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm having a conversation about this topic.
They are not fairly paid.
Wait. That's not even up for debate, Penn. I said that a moment ago. I said, man, let's just go to another support.
What? Wait. Ox, where you are, I think Ox is in the. I think Ox is in the. I think Ox is in the right neighborhood. I just think that he knocked on the wrong door. What I mean when I say that, Ox, is the motivation. What I'm saying is the motivation for Fee. I think it had a lot to do with the collective bargaining agreement coming up. You saying about them getting knocked out the playoffs with Unrivaled. I also think that that's valid too. I 100% think that that's valid. I think that has something to do with it, especially considering how leadership is having a difficult time right now and leadership is unstable. 100%. I think it's more for them to get a better deal and for them to get Engelbert out, because I think she's the problem, and I think that these negotiations will go a lot smoother if this were able to go through. I think these negotiations would go a lot smoother.
I want to just reiterate, just for the people in the back and the people that maybe just walked in and got the wrong idea. I just want to be clear about what I'm saying. I think that if there is faulty leadership, I think the vice president, Napheesa Collier, and the president of the WNBA Players Association need to speak up and protect the players. If Kathy Engelbert is incompetent, if Kathy Engelbert has the wrong motivations, if Kathy Engelbert doesn't care about the players, get her ass out of there. 100%. Real quick, I want to make sure, because I think people might have heard what you said and might get the wrong idea and think I am the problem. I want people to understand. I want people to understand what I'm saying really quick is that if there's an issue there in the leadership, it needs to be addressed and it needs to be fixed quick, fast, and in a hurry. But I also think that Napheesa Collier has some motivation. And that's not wrong.
I have said this about 500 times in my life. Pay attention to what people say after but. That's all I'm going to tell you. Just pay attention to what people say after but. Your whole life. Just hone in on that word, but. It is very important.
Her family had put a lot of money into this. They're doing something for the women in the WNBA, so where they don't have to go play overseas, they don't have to do this. They can come play over here. I support Unrivaled. I love Unrivaled. I watched as much as I could. I'm tapped in. I think that's a good league, a good thing they got going on. I also understand that in this business, you have to make money. I think Napheesa Collier wants to build her league. I think Napheesa Collier did this and said this at a calculated time. I think there's also a conflict of interest that she's in the WNBA Players Association, and she's running this other league. I think that's a conflict of interest. That's all I said. I think if Kathy Engelbert is an issue, get her out of there.
Then why does she want the WNBA to be better? Because why does she want better for the WNBA? When they launched Unrivaled, what was the first selling point? You're going to have equity and you're going to be paid more than you've ever been paid before. There's one way of looking at this.
More than you ever been paid before in the W.
Yes,
'Cause a lot
more
of
than
them
you've
make a
been
lot of
paid
money
in the
over there.
W. You're going to be able to stay in America. Why do this? Is it for yourself? Possibly. Sure. Nobody asking you to do charity. You're doing a lot of legwork. You deserve to be paid for it, and you deserve some recognition for it. But this
Also,
idea,
it is playing on 3 basketball.
look, man. Here, look. I told you. I'm trying to read through the words because people be saying a lot of stuff, and then they introduce a little bit of a but. I'm not calling Fee a liar, but I want to give Kathy Engelbert the benefit of the doubt. Why? Let's give Fee the benefit of the doubt. And she didn't just lie into a microphone. How about that? Number one. Number two. Let's not act like
I don't believe everything I hear.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
For people who have not been following this situation, let me make it clear. Napheesa Collier and many players in the WNBA have had an issue with Kathy Engelbert for years. When they brought the WNBA, when they brought Unrivaled, they talked about this. They've talked about leadership in the WNBA. They've talked about what they've done for brand sponsorships to create value. They're doing this for a reason. And you may interpret that as, well, they want to do this to destroy the WNBA to make Unrivaled better, or the conflict of interest or whatever. What I think, and I hope that this is proven true, is what they want is for Kathy Engelbert to get out of the way so that a more progressive, more business-minded, and hopefully someone who respects players and the game that they're playing a little bit more, who care about players getting injured, who care about refereeing, who care about all the things that players have issues with, that they want that person to come in and take the W to the next level. And do you know what that will do? That will create another unrivaled opportunity, but even greater than unrivaled. What I don't think Napheesa Collier is trying to rip the WNBA apart so that Unrivaled will be better, because that would be the conflict of interest. Chill, you asked me about Burger King and McDonald's. Well, let's just see. If my goal is for Burger King to be better than McDonald's, it's a conflict of interest. If my goal is for America to eat more burgers, it ain't that. And the conversation then goes into a diatribe about pen dance, basically. And, whether I want other film festivals in this city to do well because I happen to run a film festival. And my response to that, of course, was, of course, I want other film festivals to do well. Of course, I want other podcasters to do well. If you're a young podcaster who's ever reached out to me, I hope that you could vouch for me in saying that I have helped you as much as I humanly possibly could and given you as much knowledge and as much anything as I possibly could. If you're a young film festival that reached out to me through Pen Dance, I hope that you can vouch for the fact that I've spent hours with you trying to help you understand how we did it so that you can avoid some of the mistakes that we made. I don't believe that I'm not a zero-sum person, man. I'm really not. I don't believe there's a certain amount of money for me and then every amount of money you get is taking money away from me. I'm actually quite drawn away and put off by people who have that mentality of zero sum, this idea of compete. Look, man, I played 4 sports. I am competitive by nature, but that doesn't mean that I need to destroy everybody else in order to get happy. And it certainly doesn't mean that when other people lose, that I'm happy that I'm winning a little bit more on the account of them losing. And yeah, I think, the reason that I was, if you want to see like the day-to-day life of a basketball player, right? I mean, this is getting like very in the weeds, but I promise I'm going to try to round this out because I know no one is listening to this for an hour. But I wanted to do this because I know that there are some people who actually do care about stuff that I think, away from the Toronto Raptors. And sometimes it's these videos that can introduce a deeper insight into just why I do the things that I do. So, we've heard a lot about Brandon Ingram, right? We've heard a lot about Brandon Ingram being miserable in New Orleans, right? We heard a lot about Scotty Barnes maybe not being too thrilled in his first year. We heard a lot about Pascal Siakam, talking about in Indiana, oh my God, like that was the end of the road for me. I was really depressed in Toronto, like it was some dark days, whatever the quote was. I apologize to Pascal, I'm getting the quote wrong, but basically implied he just had a miserable time. Devin Booker has talked about it. He said, the last 2 years were the most, the darkest 2 years. I believe that's a direct quote or it's a paraphrase, but it's something to those lines. A lot of players suffer, bad situations, bad owners, bad coaches, bad teammates, bad situations, bad personal lives. And yet they're kind of told to shut up and dribble because they have $33 million. And apparently that's supposed to make everything okay. And it doesn't. There's no replacement for happiness. And these people are out there doing something good. They are, yeah, okay, fine. You want to take the Charles Barkley route of professional athletes aren't the real heroes. The real heroes are the policemen and the teachers. Okay, cool, man. Like, let's be for real now. I don't care if you're a teacher. You're not impacting as many lives as Napheesa Collier. You're not impacting as many lives as Caitlin Clark. And I'm not even trying to, talk down to somebody who doesn't, you know, entertain 40,000, 50,000 people, in an arena. I'm not talking about that. What I'm saying is impact is proportionate to value. Typically, if you had a product that could extend the lives of everyone in the world, you'd be the richest person in the world. If you invented a pill that could, create 5 years more life for everyone on earth, you would be the richest person in the world. You would have invented the fountain of youth. But why are you paid so much for a pill? Because of value. You create value for 7, 8, 9 billion people. You deserve to be paid. So, when a Michael Jordan or a LeBron James is entertaining 2, 3, 4 million people, yeah, I'm sorry, that means a lot. Okay, it does mean a lot. And the WNBA entertains a lot of people. There's a lot of people feeding off of this. So let me bring it to the point that turning the keys of the Toronto Raptors over to Scotty Barnes was a social good. You may think, wow, this is very weird, Rob. Like, it's just basketball. Is it just basketball? Is Jamal Shed, Jacoby Walter, Jameson Battle, John Mobo, Colin Murray Boyles having a better day every single day for the entire year, just basketball? Or does it extend beyond that? Is it possible that certain players that we all, I hope like our community is really like, we love, Christian Coloco, we love Jeff Doughton, we love, Delano Banton and all these guys. Is it possible that in a different environment, these people would have turned into players who made it instead of players who didn't? Is it possible that instead of grinding through the G League, that these are players that would potentially have had like blossoming roles because they just would have been happier and healthier and would have gotten an opportunity? The reason that a lot of people saw sulky Scotty, and again, I'm not saying this because I've talked to Scotty about this, but reading between the lines of what I understand the situation to be, like, how can you, as an empathetic, good person, watch so many of your teammates suffer for the benefit of the very few? Think about it. Think about what I'm saying, right? You're on a team, 3 to 4 people are trying to get paid, 2 to 3 people are trying to get paid. You have a head coach who's allowing it to happen. Everybody is playing a basketball that is inconducive to their strengths and is making them look worse. You're seeing people complaining about it. You're seeing people bitching about it. You're seeing people noticing it. And what's happening? Do you know how many players checked out my stories when I was ripping this team to shreds? I mean, I would never ever, because it would be so classless to release DMs and screenshots of the things that I saw. But there was a single story where I was ripping Fred VanVleet, and there were 4 Toronto Raptors on the active roster who saw that unprompted. Unprompted. I didn't tag any of them. Unprompted, 4 Toronto Raptors that year saw that story. And that's when I knew. That's when I knew. I'm like, okay, we're actually making an impact here, because there must be some sort of group thread for all 4 of these people to end up on this exact same page, checking out my film breakdown of what I think Fred VanVleet is doing in these interviews and what he's doing on the court. And that's when, the movement started really against Fred in Toronto. And I think that that's where the shift started, and ultimately comes back to, are the players we support happier today? Are they more likely to succeed today? Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Are they more enjoyable for you to watch? Yes. How toxic was our fan base? How many people in the city love the Toronto Raptors? Think beyond the obvious. The obvious is they run up and down the court and they put a basketball in the hoop. The more nuanced approach to this is they are 17 to 18 very, very, very talented people, specialist people. Do we have any appreciation for how special these people are? Do you have any appreciation for the fact that almost every single person, every one of these professional athletes is like the best player from their state for an entire year? Do you know how big a state is? You know how hard you have to work to be the best player in a state or the best player in a province? And then to take all of that, right? To bottle all of that up and then put them all in 17, 18 person team, like, you're literally watching like gladiators, bro. You're watching Gladiators, and they play in front of 19,000 people every single night in person. They play for an arena. There are maybe 1 million plus people who watch them every single night. You know, I don't know if the Raptors get 1 million viewers every single night, but when they're good, they might get 1 million viewers every single night. And you see all of that together, and you're just like, okay, if we can just get these 18 people in a good place, then everyone's in a better place. There's a trickle down approach to this. I'm not talking trickle down economics. What I'm talking about is if your organization is happier, how much more joy and positivity are you able to spread, right? How much more equity are you able to build with your players? I mean, okay, let's just say in a few years, Jacoby Walter and Grady Dick, we have to make a decision, can't afford both. Okay, well, maybe one of them, maybe they're both doing really well. You pick one and you trade the other one, and then he goes on to sign a $25 million deal with this other team. Well, if Jacoby generates $25 million in his fifth year, then maybe he's able to impact change too. Maybe he goes on to be a better person. Did you realize how young these kids are when they come to the NBA? They're 19 years old. Think about what I'm saying, and I'm like, I hope to wrap this up because I feel I can get real passionate and talk for another hour about this. Forget about basketball, forget about hockey, forget about baseball, forget about piano. We're talking savants here. We're talking the best of the best. We're talking about exceptional individuals, exceptional for one reason or another. And you know, the Toronto Raptors don't draft bums. They draft good people. They draft people who already have this idea of service, team, social impact. They already have this idea. What was Dikembe Mutombo able to do for the world through his basketball career? What was Bill Russell able to do? What is Michael Jordan been able to do? What is LeBron James going to be able to do? Every one of these athletes represents a massive, massive opportunity for wealth redistribution. And a lot of the wealth redistribution is going back to people who actually come from underprivileged backgrounds. Most billionaires die and then pass it on to their children who just become billionaires. This is an opportunity to take hundreds of millions of dollars away from billionaires and put it back into our communities. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if you start to think about this, you can actually start to lose your mind. And if you won't think about this, you think, I've lost my mind, but it's really not that complicated. The truth is that a lot of people who make money hoard it for themselves, but people who are well nourished, well developed at a young age. Think about what I'm saying. A lot of people who are 18 come from single parent homes. They never really had a father figure coming up. Adding a solid structure for how to be a great person. Do you know how many NBA players that you see later on, they become, they become coaches, they become, inspirational, they become motivational speakers, they become, presidents of companies, they become entrepreneurs, they become so many things, right? And it's just like I'm seeing the impact of it, and I've been seeing it my whole fucking life. I've been seeing the impact of reaching these very, impressionable athletes of the 19, 20, 21. Like Darko Rajakovic, John Mamalela, these people right here, not Nick Nurse, these guys are molding the leaders of tomorrow. And they're going to be leaders in Toronto. And then when they're not leaders in Toronto, they're going to be leaders in their home. When they're not leaders at home, they're going to be leaders, ambassadors for their cities. They're going to be ambassadors in their communities. Scotty's going to be able to go back to West Palm Beach and create infrastructure there. Ulrich is going to be able to go to Bafang. He's going to learn, how to do that. You got to think about it beyond that. There's a real service. And all of this is fucked up because somebody wants to hoard power and make everyone miserable, and then nothing learns. You know what happens to a brain when it becomes depressed? Do you know what happens to a brain? You know what happens to a body when it becomes depressed? It shrivels and dies. Optimal environments. So again, what am I saying? What the fuck am I saying? I'm saying that a happier Toronto Raptor team results in better young men. And these better young men go on to become better leaders. And these better young leaders go out and play basketball, and they lead to happier fans. And those happier fans you never know, man. As I said, I'm on the spectrum. Sometimes I think about things that nobody really thinks about. I think that there's a person out there who's nicer to his family when the Raptors win. I don't know. Have you ever noticed somebody being nicer? Are you nicer when the Raptors win? I think I'm nicer when the Raptors win. I think there are people who are more generous when the Raptors win. there's like a real like sports are connected to everything, man. And like the reason I fucked with Masai, the way that I did, like the reason that I really always draw so much inspiration from Masai is he saw all these little connections everywhere. He could see how much basketball could change the continent of Africa because of economic growth and investments. And he understood the business of how people invest and people are selfish. So obviously, if you set the precedent and say, hey man, there's like 15 Giannis's walking around in Africa, clearly, people are going to want to go and build roads in Africa. And then through those roads, maybe you can build infrastructure and improve the lives of people. Again, Masai Ujiri is probably never going to benefit from the work that will eventually become the new Africa. But 200 years from now, Africa will be a better place because Masai existed. Africa will be a better place because Bismack Biyombo existed. Africa will be a better place because Joachim Noah existed. It'll be a better place because Luol Deng existed. And all of these people exist in the magnitude that they exist in because of the NBA. And that's why this matters. Sports matters. Women's sports matters. A lot of women need women's sports, man. So, yeah, it's important. And I think that's where I'll leave it. We're over an hour. Thank you so much, Jamal Murray. I don't know if you're the same Jamal Murray. Is it Murray? Who's always talking on PC. You always have my back. Thank you, man. I often wonder who you are. Thank you so much for doing that. And Karen Hall saying this is what makes you special, Rob. Passion, integrity, bigger picture thinking. Hats off to you. Appreciate you, Karen, as always. I did get your email. I apologize. I have not responded to it, but don't worry. I have not taken an issue with a single time that you have corrected my grammar. Not one time. Actually, wait, that's a lie. I took an issue with it like the first time because I didn't know what you were doing. But then uh, the minute I knew, like the minute I got a sense of where you were coming from, and the fact that I just needed to get over the fact that I made a grammatical error, I've actually really appreciated you doing that. So thank you so much. Yep, haha, always got your back, Rob. Love what you do. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Keep doing your thing on PC. I will, man. I'm gonna try to be a lot better tomorrow. I don't think my last 2 episodes have been that great, but honestly, I just didn't feel great about them. I like what I'm saying. Just don't like how I'm saying it. So I just wanted to get this off my chest. This episode, is a lot. Like they say, when in the content game, I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago that I met with a content creator, and you notice like the content guru suggested some things to do with the videos and stuff. This video would be something that content guru would say, you should never make a video like this, right? You should never make a video like this, not the subject of your channel. But I'm like, that's precisely why we have to make videos like this. Occasionally, you have to spend 1 hour talking into a mic, knowing very few people will watch, that $2 of ad revenue is going to come out of it. And you had to do it anyway because, again, and I say this not as a motivational speaker, I'm not trying to inspire you, but there's something that somebody said to me once that really, really mattered to me. You might feel like something that you have to say that's important has already been said before. And so you saying it is just repetitive or redundant. And I don't think that's the case. Because the truth is that sometimes, even if it's been written, what you want to say, everything I'm saying right now has probably been written by Simone de Beauvoir at some point, or some feminist critical thinker, or some great politician. I'm sure someone has written every word that I've said here, and probably written it 100 times better than I've said it. I'm sure there's a podcast out there discussing this topic at greater depth and greater intensity and greater focus and greater clarity than I can do right now. But that doesn't mean that somebody in the world didn't need to hear this from me. And it doesn't mean somebody in the world doesn't need to hear this from you, right? Just because you're not the authority on, pushing forward and resilience doesn't mean that. And just because somebody has a book literally titled How to Be Resilient doesn't mean that they can't use that moment from you. I guess what I'm trying to say is just because somebody read a book and it tied, what am I trying to say here? If somebody has read a book that has, moved them in some way, at some point, you saying something that was in that book can click a different way. I've been trying to say what I've been trying to say for a minute and a half, and the words are not coming to me. But in a nutshell, there's really no harm in trying to do something good. And I do believe that the message of this live overall, right? Overall, is that we should support good people and try to put good people with big hearts and the great capacity for change and the great capacity for leadership, and people who don't have zero sum thinking, and people like Napheesa Collier and people like Scotty Barnes. Frankly, those two people specifically, we should put those people in positions of leadership because they will have the most disproportionately positive impact in those positions. Scotty is able to impact team culture more today than he was able to 4 years ago. In case you have not figured it out, all I've ever wanted was for him to be in charge of this locker room. I don't care if he scores 25 points. I don't care if he wins MVPs. I don't care if he will ever make a first team All NBA. I don't care if he wins 4 championships, 3 championships, 2 championships. What I know is that from now until he leaves Toronto, either by retirement or by trade or by free agency, from this day till forever, I will know that all of my favorite players on my favorite team are taken care of, that they're held accountable, that all the rookies are treated well, that they are, in a sense, cared for, held accountable, told the truth, not frozen out of the offense, not frustrated, not miserable. How can you care about a team and not care about that part of it? Hard. Tyler saying excited for the team Swiper versus Team Jordan. Also waiting for the beautiful game. Appreciate you, man. Rooting for you in the PCL. That's Friday. The PCL is Friday. I am going to be very prepared. I'm going to be very locked and loaded. But I got to tell you, the 40-second thing is freaking me out, man. Vegan Grass saying the media are going to make them miserable, and that's why we hold the media accountable. That's why we hold ourselves accountable, by the way. That's why we hold ourselves accountable. I heard through grapevine 2 years ago, that one of the players on the Toronto Raptors was a little bit upset with me that I was being so critical of a teammate of his. No, it wasn't Scotty Barnes. It was somebody else. And I heard this. And at that point, I was like, uh-oh, I'm no longer servicing. I'm no longer serving my goal. If my goal was player first coverage, like I'll tell you what, on days like today, when I'm on PC and I'm getting so much pushback, I'll always ask myself this question, and it's a valid question. I think we all need a North Star. The question I ask myself is, if my favorite players, WNBA or NBA, if my favorite basketball players and my favorite basketball coaches caught this segment, would they understand my need to say what I have to say? Not would they agree with me, not would they applaud for me. Would they understand the validity of what I'm saying? Would they at least get something from it? And if they would, I'm going to say it. I'm going to keep saying it. And I'm really hoping that WNBA players, in case they caught any bit of the panel, I hope that I represented their perspective well today, because that was my only goal. With this topic, with what Napheesa's done in this video, in that video, I spent 2.5 hours today talking about it. I spent a good hour and a half posting about it today. I spent another hour and a half reading about it, listening to, other content creators talking about it. I just hope that I've represented it well. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great one. And Sean saying, I'm scared for the future of this team off the court if Darko is on a short leash and they underperform out of the gate. I'm assuming a lot of people here are Toronto Raptor fans. Let me just say very, very briefly, I don't think this team is going to underperform, my friend. I'm getting some very, very positive feedback. I know that, was it like 5 or 6 days ago before it became like the main talking point? I was checking out Raptors Republic today, and they're doing this check-in from training camp every single day, and I seem to realize like Darko responded to the media and said Scotty's going to be doing a lot of cuts. He's going to be doing a lot of transition stuff, early steals. And it's kind of funny, but 5 or 6 days ago, I made a video talking about how Scotty was going to be used, and I mentioned exactly those things. Said he's going to be a cutter, roller, and catch and shoot guy. He's going to be getting it in transition off the glass. And somebody said, "Do you have an inside source?" Many, many that I hit up occasionally and often to ask about how my favorite team is doing. And yeah, but here's the caveat here. And this is, again, this is an interpretation of what Samson and Esfandiar were saying. The interpretation of how you interpret, like, how do you interpret an off ball role? For a lot of people who haven't properly thought about it, you'll view it as a demotion. You'll view it as an admission that Scotty's not good at things that, you know, but to a rational, hopefully well balanced person, you're not going to view it as that at all. You're going to actually view it as last year was this year is this. And it's all a part of the same continuous motion towards getting this guy to his prime, right? It's important to get a player to his prime. You need to build up their mind, build up their body, build up their game. You need to do all of those things, which means that Scotty going to Hamlet is important. You may not think it's important, but it's important. Scotty reading certain books is important. If you're going to lead people, you need to understand leadership. Scotty speaking to the media is important. Scotty having difficult conversations with his teammates is important. Scotty having his teammates traded and having to sulk. Scotty going through, miserable shooting stretches. Scotty going through tantrums. Scotty having arguments with his coaches, with his GM. These are all very, very important, critical steps towards growing. Because once again, and this is hard to believe sometimes, but this kid came here when he was 20 years old. He was drafted when he was 19 years old. 19. That is not a joke. Cooper Flag is 18 right now. 18 years old. Do you have an 18-year-old? Are they still living with you? Well, the Flags have an 18-year-old, and he has been an international superstar for the last 3 years. It doesn't change the fact that he's 18. He still has to go through all that growth. Scotty is 23 going on 24. He's 24 years old now. This will be the first season in which I think his role is like very clearly defined, but also optimized. So they should be really, really good, man. Like, they should be really good. Like, I have a feeling they're going to come out of the gate at least 500 throughout like the first 14, 15 games. And then I have a feeling also like that they have this expectation that if we're good, we might actually opt for upgrades. So you can see that. Don't listen to Hello Pod. That's exactly how they view it. Well, no problem. That's perfectly fine. It's not a demotion at all. It's just a flip. It's a change. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually ends up scoring more points, right? You got to factor in like Scotty's always going to be like accommodating his teammates. He has a teammate who needs the ball a lot in Brandon Ingram, and Scotty has incredible gifts off the ball. Kevin Garnett did a lot of off-ball stuff. A lot of off-ball stuff. Tim Duncan did a lot of off-ball stuff. Ray Allen did a lot of off-ball stuff. Steph Curry does a lot of off-ball stuff. Only in this city, only with this city's media can this be viewed as a bad thing. And you know what? Darko Rajakovic, shout outs to Darko. He comes from my city, right? Darko comes from my city. And we both have the exact same problem. I mean, we're very different people. He's very nice. I'm very mean. He's very kind-spirited. I can be very mean-spirited. But we're very alike in one way, which is that we always give the media a little bit too much credit. We always assume that being honest with people is going to lead to an understanding. He'll just come out and say he's going to be more off ball because that's the truth. He has no reason to lie about it. Why perjure yourself? He'll come out and say, that he thinks Scotty Barnes is going to be the face of the league, even though he's going to get trolled for it. But again, if you think that, why lie about it? Darko doesn't think in terms of lying. I mean, obviously, he's limited as a head coach of a professional basketball team. He can't just come out and say whatever the fuck he wants all the time. But there are certain answers where I feel I wish that he understood that the honesty with which he is speaking is not going to be rewarded with understanding. Telling the Hello and Welcome podcast, no offense to those guys, that Scotty's going to be off ball, to a bunch of guys who think the guy can barely dribble and score, like that to them is like, yeah, see, we were right. All the stupid jump shots that Scotty was taking. But those very same stupid jump shots that he was taking last year that you think are stupid jump shots are the same jump shots that he'll now be able to go to as a counter, and are frankly the same jump shots that he'll be taking in his prime. Again, it's all a matter of working on things one at a time. And to any person who's ever become good at anything, I'm talking piano, tennis, basketball, podcasting, filmmaking, whatever, right? It's all step by step. It's all step by step. Every single thing comes down to breaking things down to their, base minimums and then getting better at them. When you go to the gym and you do your legs, and the next day you do your arms, and the next day you do your chest, I've never heard anybody on the third day be like, "Oh, you guess you gave up on your legs, huh?" No, man. We're working on our chest today. Like, what's wrong with you? Right? So I love the Raptors have this extremely evolved way of thinking about the game. I love that we have a coach, head coach, and assistant coach that I genuinely trust so much in Darko and uh, Jama. I wish we had better coverage. And shout outs to Raptors Republic for giving us some better coverage, because I did check out their video and they were very fair about that. They didn't, do that whole thing, which a lot of Raptor media would do, which is like, see, Scotty Barnes was never, an on ball guy. No, they immediately went to the right conclusion, which is this is actually a really good thing. This is going to be the best for Scotty. And no, that is not, he can't do the other thing. It's that he has teammates who do that other stuff really well right now because they're older, but he has this superpower that he can now go to. It's a positive thing that will be flipped into a negative thing by people who are drawn to negative things. Make sense? Anyways, talk to y'all later. Enjoy. And Jamal, thank you so much for your support, man. Every little bit counts. So I appreciate you joining up and becoming a member. And shout outs to all of our members. I do want to give a quick shout out to our members, our VIP members: Susan Garrett, Springer, Stanley WK, Pepperjack, Karen Hall, ApexGlassOn, Courtside 6, Disc Revered, and our newest VIP member, ESPN Needs IKD. Thank you guys so much. And Vegan Grass saying, this was the plan all along for Scotty: build his overall game, then allow him to focus on his strengths. Exactly. And again, it will come out later, probably at some point, but Scotty is going to continue working on his overall game. Like, I hope you all understand, we're not taking mid-range pull-ups out of his game. He's just going to it a little bit less. We're not taking pull-up threes from 28 feet out of his game. He's still going to be a full offensive player. He's just not going to be going to his most inefficient offense all the time, which would have been crazy if he had. So yeah, I mean, I'm actually curious if he can win MIP this year, because if he comes out and averages 23 points on really efficient splits, it'd be really hard to hold it against him, right? Anyways, shout outs to Vegan Grass, Sean, Not Donald Fagan, Billy, Karen, Carry Water, Chop Wood. It's actually Chop Wood, Carry Water, if you're referencing the book. If you're just making a phrase, well then, yes. Good night, Rib. Have a good sleep. Are you doing this on purpose now? It's Rob, and you know that. I think you're just doing this on purpose now. Anyways, that was very funny. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.